The telegram arrived on a Tuesday morning in September of 1878, and Victoria, Tory Dane, had never felt more alone in his 32 years than when he opened it to find confirmation that his mail-order bride would arrive in Castle Dome, Arizona Territory, by week's end. He stood on the wooden boardwalk outside the telegraph office, dust swirling around his worn boots as a hot wind swept down the main street of the small mining town. The paper trembled slightly in his calloused hands, not from nervousness exactly, but from the weight of what it meant. For 3 years since his mother passed, he had run his cattle ranch alone, watching the sun rise and set over the Sonoran Desert without anyone to share the beauty or the burden of it all. His younger sister had married and moved to San Francisco. His father had died in the war, and the ranch that had once been filled with laughter now echoed with silence. The advertisement had been his foreman's idea. "Boss, you need a woman," Miguel had said one evening as they sat by the fire after a long day mending fences. "This place needs life again." So Tory had written to the matrimonial agency in Boston, feeling foolish as he described himself and his circumstances. He was honest about everything: the isolation, the hard work, the unforgiving landscape. He expected no response, or perhaps one from a desperate woman with no other options. Instead, he received a carefully penned letter from Miss Helena Whitfield of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Her words had been measured but warm, explaining that her father had recently passed, leaving her alone with debts she could not pay. She was 24, educated, and willing to build a new life in the West. She did not promise love, but she promised honesty and hard work. Something in her straightforward manner had appealed to him, and after 3 more letters over the course of 2 months, he had sent money for her passage west. Now she was coming, and he had 5 days to prepare. Tory walked down the street toward the Mercantile, nodding to familiar faces. Castle Dome was small, barely 300 souls, most of them working the nearby silver and lead mines. The town had sprung up almost overnight when the mines opened in 1870, and while it had seen rougher days, it had settled into a steady rhythm. The marshal kept the peace. The saloon provided entertainment within reason, and folks helped each other survive the brutal desert summers and surprisingly cold winter nights. Inside the Mercantile, Mrs. Chen looked up from arranging canned goods on a shelf. She was one of the few Chinese families who had stayed after the railroad work dried up, and she ran the store with efficiency and a sharp eye for quality. "Mr. Dane," she greeted him with a slight smile, "what brings you to town on a Tuesday?" "My bride arrives Friday on the stage from Yuma," he said, the words still feeling strange on his tongue. "I need to make sure the house is properly stocked. Women's things." Mrs. Chen's smile widened. "Finally taking everyone's advice, I see. Let me help you. What has she told you about herself?" Tory pulled Helena's last letter from his vest pocket, now worn soft from repeated readings. "She says she is practical and not given to frivolous needs, but I want her to feel welcome." They spent the next hour selecting items: good soap that smelled of lavender, fabric for curtains and a new dress, hairpins and ribbons, proper tea, real sugar, and various sundries that Tory would never have thought of himself. Mrs. Chen packed everything carefully in crates, promising to have them delivered to his ranch by Thursday. "Treat her kindly, Mr. Dane," Mrs. Chen said as he prepared to leave. "Coming west to marry a stranger takes great courage." "I intend to, madam. I surely do." The next 3 days passed in a blur of activity. Tory cleaned the ranch house from top to bottom, a task that revealed just how much he had let things slide. He whitewashed the bedroom that would be Helena's, at least at first, and made sure the window looked out over the best view of the desert sunset. He repaired the rocking chair on the front porch and built new shelves in the kitchen. Miguel and the other ranch hands teased him mercilessly but helped where they could, and by Thursday evening, the house looked better than it had in years. Friday morning dawned clear and hot. Tory bathed, shaved carefully, and dressed in his best clothes, clean trousers, a white shirt, his good vest, and the black coat he wore to church. He brushed his dark hair back and examined himself in the small mirror. His face was weathered from years in the sun, lines creasing the corners of his eyes. He was tall and lean, strong from hard work, but he wondered what Helena would think when she saw him. The photograph he had sent was 2 years old. The ride into town took an hour. Tory reached Castle Dome by noon, though the stage was not due until 2. He waited outside the station, checking his pocket watch every few minutes. The watch had been his father's, a silver piece with a dented case and a steady tick that had measured out the years of his life. He found the sound comforting. Other townspeople gathered as the time approached. News of the mail-order bride had spread quickly, as news always did in small towns, and there was considerable interest in seeing the woman who would become Mrs. Dane. Marshal Garrett stood nearby, a middle-aged man with a gray mustache and a calm demeanor. "Nervous?" the marshal asked. "Some," Tory admitted. "Natural enough. My own wife came west with a wagon train, and I thought my heart would pound right out of my chest the day we met. Been married 23 years now." The distant sound of hoofbeats and rattling wheels announced the stage's arrival. Tory's mouth went dry as the 6-horse team pulled the dusty Concorde coach into view. The driver, a grizzled man named Hawkins, brought the team to a halt with practiced ease, and his shotgun guard jumped down to open the door. 2 men exited first, miners by the look of them, heading for the saloon. Then a small gloved hand appeared, and Hawkins himself helped the next passenger down. Helena Whitfield stepped into the Arizona sunlight, and Tory forgot to breathe. She was not beautiful in the conventional sense, but there was something striking about her that rooted him to the spot. She was taller than he expected, perhaps 5.5 feet, with dark blonde hair pinned up beneath a simple but well-made traveling hat. Her face was pale from the journey, and dust clung to her dark blue dress, but her gray eyes were clear and intelligent as they scanned the crowd. She carried herself with a straight back and squared shoulders, meeting the curious stares with a composed expression. "Miss Whitfield." Tory stepped forward, removing his hat. Her gaze found him, and he saw something flicker in her eyes, relief perhaps, or assessment. "Mr. Dane." "Yes, madam." "Welcome to Castle Dome." He wanted to say more, something eloquent or welcoming, but the words stuck in his throat. A small smile touched her lips. "Thank you. It is good to finally arrive. The journey was quite long." "I imagined so. Let me get your trunk." Hawkins was already unloading luggage. Helena's belongings consisted of a medium-sized trunk and a carpet bag, modest compared to what some women brought west. Tory hefted the trunk easily and nodded toward his wagon. "The ranch is about an hour from here. We can get married today if you are willing. Reverend Walsh is waiting at the church, or we can wait if you need time to rest and think on it." Helena looked at him directly, and he appreciated that she did not lower her eyes or act coy. "I did not travel all this way to delay the inevitable, Mr. Dane. If you are still willing, I am prepared to marry today." "I am willing, Miss Whitfield, more than willing." They walked together toward the small church at the end of the main street, and Tory was aware of every eye following them. Helena seemed unbothered by the attention, her head high. As they walked, she reached into her reticule and pulled out a handkerchief, dabbing at the dust on her face. "I must look a fright," she said. "You look just fine, madam, better than fine." She glanced at him with a hint of amusement. "You are kind to say so, though I am certain I resemble something the desert dragged in. The desert is not so bad once you get used to it. It has its own beauty. I hope I will come to see it that way." The church was small, built of adobe with a simple wooden cross above the door. Reverend Walsh waited inside with his wife, who would serve as a witness along with Marshal Garrett. The interior was cool and dim, a relief from the fierce sunlight outside. Reverend Walsh was a kind-faced man in his 50s who had brought the word to Castle Dome 5 years earlier. "Miss Whitfield, welcome. I am glad you arrived safely. Are you prepared to enter into this union?" "I am, Reverend." "And you, Victoria?" "Yes, sir." The ceremony was brief and simple. Tory spoke his vows clearly, promising to honor and cherish Helena for all his days. When it came her turn, her voice was steady but soft, and he heard the slight accent of the East in her words. The Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, and Tory gently kissed Helena's cheek, not wanting to presume more in such a public moment. Mrs. Walsh hugged Helena warmly. "You are among friends here, dear. If you need anything, please do not hesitate to call on us." "Thank you. That is most kind." They signed the registry, making it official in the eyes of the law and God. As they walked out of the church into the afternoon heat, Helena stumbled slightly and Tory caught her elbow. "Are you all right?" "Yes, just tired. It has been a very long week." "Let us get you home. You can rest there." The wagon ride to the ranch was quiet at first. Helena sat beside him on the bench, her hands folded in her lap, watching the landscape roll by. The desert stretched in all directions, punctuated by saguaro cacti and rocky outcroppings. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks purple against the blue sky. "It is so vast," Helena said finally. "I have never seen so much open space." "Does it frighten you?" She considered the question. "No, it is simply different. Philadelphia was all buildings and people, noise and smoke. This is—" She paused, quiet. "Sometimes too quiet," Tory admitted, "but you get used to it. And the ranch has hands who live in the bunkhouse. Miguel, Thomas, and James. They are good men. You will not be entirely isolated. Tell me about the ranch." So Tory talked, grateful for something to fill the silence. He described the cattle operation, modest but profitable. They ran about 200 head of mixed-breed cattle, selling beef to the mining camps and the army fort to the north. The ranch had good water from a reliable spring, and he had slowly been building up the herd and improving the bloodlines. It was hard work, but honest, and the land was his own, paid for with his father's life insurance money and years of saving. Helena listened carefully, asking intelligent questions about water rights and market prices. It became clear she had educated herself about ranching before leaving Philadelphia, which impressed him considerably. "You seem surprised that I know something of cattle," she observed, pleasantly surprised. Most Eastern women would not think to learn such things. "I did not want to come west entirely ignorant of my new life. My father always said that knowledge was the best preparation for any situation." "Your father sounds like he was a wise man." A shadow crossed her face. "He was. I miss him greatly." "How long has he been gone?" 4 months. "He had a weak heart, and it finally gave out. He was a watchmaker, quite skilled, but the work required such close focus and long hours. I think it wore him down over the years." She reached into her reticule again and drew out a pocket watch, smaller and more delicate than the one Tory carried. The case was gold-colored brass with an engraved floral pattern, and when she opened it, he saw the face was pristine white with elegant Roman numerals. "This was his," she said softly. "One of the finest pieces he ever made. I brought it with me because I could not bear to leave it behind. It is all I have left of him." Tory heard the pain in her voice and understood it intimately. "I am sorry for your loss. Losing a parent is." He struggled for words. "It leaves a hole nothing else can fill." She looked at him with those clear gray eyes, and he saw understanding there. "You have experienced such loss yourself." "My mother 3 years ago, my father when I was 19. He died at Shiloh. The war took many good men. It did. They fell into a companionable silence, bonded by shared grief." The watch disappeared back into her bag, but Tory found himself thinking about it. A father's watch, carried across the country by a daughter who had lost everything familiar and chosen to start anew with a stranger. The courage that took was staggering. The ranch house came into view as they crested a low rise. It was a sprawling single-story structure built of adobe and wood, with a deep porch that wrapped around 3 sides. Cottonwood trees grew near the house, fed by irrigation channels from the spring, providing blessed shade. Corrals and outbuildings dotted the area, and in the distance, cattle grazed on the desert scrub. "This is home," Tory said, suddenly seeing it through her eyes and hoping it measured up. Helena studied the scene carefully. "It looks solid, well maintained. I've tried to keep it up. My mother was particular about such things, and I have not wanted to disappoint her memory." He helped Helena down from the wagon, and she stood for a moment, one hand shading her eyes as she looked around. The heat was intense, the sun beating down mercilessly, but a slight breeze stirred the air. Miguel emerged from the barn, wiping his hands on a rag. He was a wiry man in his 40s with a weathered face and a ready smile. "Boss, you are back. This must be the missus." "Helena, this is Miguel Torres, my foreman. Miguel, my wife, Mrs. Dane." Miguel swept off his hat respectfully. "Welcome, Senora Dane. We are very glad you have come. The boss, he has needed a good woman for a long time." Helena smiled, and Tory was struck by how it transformed her face. "Thank you, Miguel. I hope I will prove worthy of that description." "I am certain you will. If you need anything at all, you just ask. We are all here to help." Tory carried Helena's trunk inside, and she followed, her steps slow as she took in her new home. The main room was large, serving as both sitting area and dining space, with a substantial fireplace along one wall. The kitchen was to the right, well equipped for a ranch house, and doors led off to 3 bedrooms and a small office. "I cleaned as best I could," Tory said, suddenly nervous again. "Mrs. Chen helped me stock things. Your room is here." He opened the door to the whitewashed bedroom. "I thought you might want your own space, at least at first. There is no rush for anything else." Helena looked at him, really looked at him, and he saw something like gratitude in her expression. "That is considerate, Mr. Dane, thank you. Please call me Tory. Mr. Dane was my father." "Tory then, and you must call me Helena. Helena." He liked the way her name felt in his mouth. She moved through the room, touching the furniture lightly. "This is lovely. The view is beautiful." She stood at the window, looking out over the desert toward the mountains. "I can see why you love it here. Give it time. The desert grows on you, or it does not. I hope for you it will. I am sure it will. I am quite determined to make the best of my new circumstances." There was steel beneath her polite words, and Tory recognized a survivor. She had lost her father, her home, everything familiar, and had chosen action over despair. He found himself respecting her tremendously. "I will let you rest and freshen up. I put a pitcher and basin in your room, and the water is clean. Supper will be in a few hours. Nothing fancy, I am afraid. I am a decent cook, but no expert. I can cook, Tory. That is one skill my father insisted I learn. He said a person who could cook would never go hungry. Your father was a wise man indeed." He left her to settle in and went to care for the horses, needing the familiar work to settle his own nerves. Miguel joined him in the barn, grinning. She is pretty, boss, and she seems smart. She is both. I am grateful she came. You think you will be happy?" Tory paused in brushing down the horses. "I do not know yet, but I think we have a chance. She has courage, and I respect that. Respect is a good start. Love can grow from respect. I hope you are right." That evening, Helena emerged from her room in a fresh dress, her hair neatly arranged, looking far more rested. She surveyed the kitchen with an experienced eye and began helping Tory prepare supper without being asked. They worked in an easy rhythm, and Tory found himself relaxing. She was competent and efficient, and when they sat down to eat, the meal was better than anything he had cooked for himself in months. "You were modest about your cooking skills," he said. "As were you. This is quite good." After supper, they sat on the front porch as the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and red. The heat of the day faded, and the desert came alive with evening sounds. The distant howl of a coyote, the chirp of insects, the lowing of cattle. "Tory," Helena said after a long silence, "I want to be honest with you. I came here because I had no other choice. My father left debts and I could not pay them. The house was sold and I was left with almost nothing. I answered your advertisement because it seemed like the best option available to me, not because I was seeking romance or adventure." He appreciated her directness. "I understand. I advertised because I was lonely and the ranch needed a woman's presence. I was not looking for a great love story, just partnership and companionship. Then we are honest with each other about our expectations. Yes." She turned to look at him in the fading light. "But I want you to know that I intend to be a good wife, Tory. I will work hard, I will keep the house, I will help however I can. I may not love you yet, but I respect you and I am grateful you have given me this chance for a new life. Helena, that is all I could ask for. We will figure this out together, step by step. There is no rush for anything. We are married now and we have all the time in the world to learn about each other." She relaxed visibly at his words. "Thank you. I was afraid you might expect immediate intimacy." "No, madam. When that time comes, if it comes, it will be because we both want it. You have my word on that." They sat together as full darkness fell and the stars emerged, countless brilliant points in the black sky. Helena gasped softly. "I have never seen so many stars. No city lights to hide them out here. On a clear night you can see the whole Milky Way. It is magnificent." He pulled out his father's pocket watch, checking the time in the starlight. The gesture caught Helena's attention. "That is a beautiful watch, my father's. Like yours with your father's watch, it is all I have left of him. He carried it through the war and mailed it home before the battle where he died. It arrived a week after we got the telegram about his death. I am sorry, that must have been terrible. It was. But the watch reminds me of him, of the good times before the war. He taught me about ranching, about being a man of my word. Every time I check the time, I remember those lessons." Helena drew out her own watch, holding it so the starlight caught the brass case. "My father made this watch for my mother as a wedding gift. She wore it on a chain around her neck until she died when I was 10. Then father kept it, and I would hear it ticking when he held me. After he died, I found it in his workshop with a note saying it should be mine. They both knew time was precious." "Yes." Tory looked at the two watches, his father's and her father's, and an idea formed. "Helena, I want to make you a promise. I know we have just met and we are essentially strangers, but I promise you this. I will give you my time. All of it, freely and without reservation. I will not take you for granted or neglect you. Whatever time we have together, however this turns out, you will have my full attention and my best effort." She stared at him, and in the starlight he saw tears glisten in her eyes. "That is the kindest thing anyone has ever said to me." "I promise you the same, Tory. You will have my time, my attention, and my best effort. We will build something good here together." He held out his hand and she took it. They shook formally, sealing their promise, and then sat holding hands on the porch, looking at the stars, each carrying a father's watch, each carrying grief and hope in equal measure. The first weeks of marriage fell into a natural rhythm. Helena proved to be everything she claimed: hardworking, intelligent, and adaptable. She rose early and learned quickly, tackling each new challenge with determination. The ranch house was soon spotless. The meals were excellent, and she even began helping with the bookkeeping, her neat hand far superior to Tory's scrawl in the ledgers. But more than her competence, Tory found himself drawn to her company. They talked during meals and in the evenings, sharing stories of their pasts. Helena told him about growing up in Philadelphia, the daughter of a skilled craftsman who had taught her to appreciate precision and beauty in small things. She had been educated at a good school, unusual for a girl, because her father believed women should have the same opportunities as men. Tory shared memories of growing up on the ranch, of learning to rope and ride from his father, of the pain of losing him in the war, of struggling to keep the ranch going through the difficult years that followed. He told her about his mother's quiet strength and his sister's laughter, about building something from nothing in an unforgiving land. They were learning each other, and with each conversation, the distance between them shrank a little more. A month after Helena's arrival, Tory was working in the north pasture when Miguel came riding up hard, his horse lathered. "Boss, we have a problem. Rustlers hit the canyon herd last night. Thomas spotted tracks this morning. Looks like they got away with maybe 20 head." Tory swore under his breath. Rustling was an ongoing problem in the territory, and 20 head was a significant loss. Did Thomas follow the trail? For a bit, but he came back to report. Trail leads east toward the Gila River. Get Thomas and James. We leave in 20 minutes. Back at the ranch house, Tory found Helena in the kitchen, her hands floured from making bread. He explained the situation quickly. "I do not know when I will be back. Could be a day, could be 3. Miguel will stay here with you." Concern flashed across her face, but she nodded. "Be careful, Tory. Do not take unnecessary risks over cattle." "I will be careful, but I have to go. We cannot let rustlers think they can steal from us without consequence." She wiped her hands on her apron and crossed to him, rising on her toes to kiss his cheek. It was the first time she had initiated such contact, and it warmed him considerably. "Come back safe," she said softly. "I promise." The trail led east as Miguel had reported, tracks clear in the soft ground near the river. 3 riders driving the stolen cattle, moving fast but not fast enough. Tory and his men pushed hard, and by nightfall of the second day they spotted the rustlers' camp. Marshal Garrett had joined them in town, bringing 2 deputies, and they approached carefully under cover of darkness. The rustlers were sloppy, confident they had gotten away clean. When Garrett called out for them to surrender, 2 of the 3 went for their guns. The brief gunfight left 1 rustler wounded and the other 2 under arrest, and miraculously, none of Tory's people were hurt. The cattle were recovered, and by the afternoon of the 3rd day, Tory was riding back to the ranch, tired and filthy but satisfied. Helena met him on the porch, and the relief on her face was palpable. "Thank God. I have been worried sick. I am fine. We got the cattle back and the rustlers are in jail. Were you hurt?" "Not a scratch." She hugged him then, suddenly and fiercely, and Tory wrapped his arms around her, surprised and pleased. When she pulled back, she looked embarrassed. "I am sorry. I was just so worried. Do not apologize." "I liked it." She smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "Come inside. You need food and a bath." That night, after he had cleaned up and eaten, they sat on the porch again. It had become their ritual, these evening conversations under the stars. Helena had her father's watch in her hand, turning it over thoughtfully. "When you did not come back yesterday, I kept checking this watch," she said, "counting the hours, wondering if you were safe. It made me realize something." "What is that?" "That I care about you, Tory. More than I expected to. More than a business arrangement would suggest, the thought of something happening to you." She paused, swallowing hard. "It frightened me." His heart beat faster. "I care about you too, Helena. These past weeks, getting to know you, it has been the happiest time I have had in years. You have brought life back to this house to me." "I came here because I had no choice," she said quietly. "But I am staying because I want to, because I am beginning to love you. Only beginning." He tried to keep his tone light, but emotion choked his voice. "Well, I am a practical woman. I need to be certain before I declare my full affections." "What would make you certain?" She turned to face him fully, and in the lamplight spilling from the window, her eyes were serious. "Time, Tory. Just time. The kind you promised me. You have kept that promise every single day. You listen when I speak, you value my opinions, you treat me as a partner. That means everything." He took her hand, lifting it to his lips and kissing her knuckles gently. "I will continue to keep that promise every day for the rest of my life. I know you will. That is why I am falling in love with you." They kissed then, truly kissed for the first time since their wedding day. It was gentle and sweet, full of promise, and when they parted, both were smiling. "I think," Helena said softly, "that perhaps separate bedrooms are no longer necessary." "Are you certain?" "I am certain. I want to be your wife in every way, Tory, if you will have me." "Helena, I have wanted nothing else almost since the day you arrived. But I wanted to wait until you were ready. I am ready now." That night, they came together with tenderness and growing passion, learning each other in new ways, and by morning, the marriage that had begun as a practical arrangement had transformed into something real and deep and true. The seasons turned, and the ranch prospered under their joint effort. Helena's sharp mind and attention to detail improved the bookkeeping and helped them negotiate better prices for their cattle. She also revealed an unexpected talent for animal husbandry, taking a particular interest in breeding better stock. Word spread that Tory Dane's Eastern bride was not just pretty but smart, and other ranchers' wives began calling on Helena, welcoming her into their informal community. She flourished under the attention, making friends and gradually becoming woven into the fabric of Castle Dome society. On a cool morning in late November, Helena stood in the kitchen feeling queasy. The sensation had been recurring for a few days, always worst in the morning. When it hit again the next day and the next, she began to suspect the cause. Mrs. Chen, when consulted in town, confirmed her suspicions with a knowing smile. "You are with child, Mrs. Dane. I would say about 2 months along. Congratulations." Helena felt a rush of emotions: joy, fear, excitement, worry. A baby. She and Tory were going to have a baby. She told him that evening on the porch, their special place for important conversations. He had been checking his watch, noting it was time to bring the hands in for supper when she took his hand. "Tory, I need to tell you something." He must have heard something in her voice because he immediately gave her his full attention. "What is it? Are you all right?" "I am fine." "Better than fine, actually. I am." She took a breath. "I am going to have a baby. We are going to have a baby." For a moment he simply stared at her. Then a smile broke across his face like sunrise, so full of joy it made her heart ache. "A baby, truly, truly." Mrs. Chen confirmed it today. "Sometime in June, she thinks." He pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "Helena, I do not have words. I am so happy." "You are not worried. About what?" "About me, about the baby, about everything that can go wrong." He pulled back to look at her face, his expression serious now. "Of course I am worried, but I am also thrilled. We will face whatever comes together just as we have faced everything else." "I am frightened, Tory. My mother died giving birth. What if?" "Do not think that way. You are strong and healthy, and we will get the best help available. I will take care of you, I promise. You and our baby." His certainty calmed her fears, and she leaned against him, feeling his solid presence. "I love you, Tory Dane. I do not think I have said it enough. You show me every day, but I like hearing it too. I love you, Helena. More than I thought possible. You promised me all your time," she said, smiling through tears. "Now you will have to share it with our child. I will gladly give my time to both of you, every moment I have." The pregnancy progressed well through the winter. Helena bloomed despite the occasional discomfort, and Tory was attentive to the point of being overprotective. He insisted she rest more, do less heavy work, and he worried constantly, though he tried to hide it. In early March, a new challenge arrived in the form of a telegram. Tory's sister Sarah wrote that she was coming for a visit, eager to meet her sister-in-law and escape the bustle of San Francisco for a while. Sarah Dane Vanderhoff arrived on the stage looking every inch a city woman, dressed in the latest fashion and carrying enough luggage for a month-long stay. She was 27, pretty and vivacious, with Tory's dark hair and their mother's blue eyes. "Brother," she threw herself into Tory's arms with unrestrained enthusiasm before turning to Helena. "And you must be the famous Helena. I have heard so much about you." Helena liked her immediately. Sarah was warm and funny, and despite her city polish, she adapted quickly to ranch life. The two women became fast friends, and Sarah proved invaluable as Helena's pregnancy advanced, offering companionship and help around the house. One evening, the three of them sat on the porch after supper. Sarah was telling stories about San Francisco society, making them both laugh with her witty observations, when she suddenly grew serious. "Helena, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Are you happy here? Truly happy? I know you came under difficult circumstances, and this life is so different from what you knew." Helena reached for Tory's hand, and he immediately laced his fingers through hers. "I am happier than I have ever been. I will not lie and say the adjustment was easy. The first weeks were hard. But Tory has been wonderful, and this place has become home. I cannot imagine being anywhere else. He is good to you. He is the best man I have ever known." Tory cleared his throat, embarrassed but pleased. Sarah smiled. "Good. He deserves happiness. We both lost so much when Mother died, and I worried about him out here alone. But you have brought him back to life. I can see it in everything he does." "He has given me a new life," Helena said softly. "He promised me his time, all of it, and he has kept that promise every single day." Sarah looked curious. "That is an interesting way to put it." Helena pulled out her father's watch, and Tory pulled out his. They explained the story, how they had both lost their parents, how they had bonded over the watches, how Tory had made his promise that first night. "Time is the most valuable thing we have," Helena said, "and Tory gives me his freely. He listens, he cares, he is present. After losing father and feeling so alone, that gift means everything." Sarah had tears in her eyes. "That is beautiful. I am so glad you found each other." "So am I," Tory said quietly. Sarah stayed for a month, helping Helena prepare for the baby and reconnecting with her brother. When she finally departed for San Francisco, she left with a promise to return after the baby was born, and Helena felt like she had gained a sister. As spring arrived, painting the desert with wildflowers after the winter rains, Helena grew increasingly uncomfortable. The baby was active, and she was large enough that moving around was difficult. Tory hired a woman from town, Mrs. Martinez, to stay at the ranch as Helena's due date approached. Mrs. Martinez was a midwife with 30 years of experience and a calm, capable manner. In the third week of June, on a hot evening as the sun set, Helena's labor began. Tory sent Miguel for the doctor in town as a precaution, though Mrs. Martinez assured him everything was progressing normally. The labor was long and difficult. Tory paced on the porch, listening to Helena's cries and feeling utterly helpless. Mrs. Martinez occasionally emerged to give updates, but mostly he just waited, checking his watch obsessively as the hours crawled by. Miguel and the other hands kept him company, trying to distract him with stories and jokes, but nothing worked. He had never been so frightened in his life. Finally, just before dawn, he heard it, the thin, angry wail of a newborn. He froze, barely daring to hope until Mrs. Martinez came out with a smile. "Congratulations, Mr. Dane, you have a healthy son." Relief nearly drove him to his knees. "And Helena, is she all right?" "She is tired, but she is fine. Come meet your boy." He entered the bedroom on shaking legs. Helena lay propped against pillows, her hair damp with sweat, looking exhausted but radiant. In her arms was a tiny bundle, and when she looked up at Tory, her smile was like sunlight. "Meet your son," she whispered. Tory approached carefully and looked down at the baby. He was red and wrinkled, with a surprising amount of dark hair and tiny fists waving in the air. As Tory watched, the baby opened his eyes, revealing dark blue infant eyes that seemed to look right at him. "He is perfect," Tory said, his voice choked with emotion. "You are both perfect." "Do you want to hold him?" "I am afraid I will break him." Helena laughed softly. "You will not break him. He is tougher than he looks." She transferred the baby into Tory's awkward arms, and he held his son for the first time, feeling the weight of responsibility and love settle over him like a mantle. This tiny person was his, theirs, a whole new life created from their union. "What should we name him?" Helena asked. Tory had been thinking about this for weeks. "I would like to name him James Wallace Dane. James was my father's name and Wallace was yours." Helena's eyes filled with tears. "Both our fathers, I love it. James Wallace Dane. Hello, little James." The baby made a small noise and they both laughed, giddy with exhaustion and joy. Over the next few weeks, they adjusted to life with an infant. James was a good baby for the most part, but he needed constant care, and Helena was exhausted. Tory helped as much as he could, walking the floor with James when he fussed at night, changing nappies with fumbling hands, doing anything to ease Helena's burden. True to his promise, he gave them his time, all of it. The ranch work still got done, but his priorities had shifted. His family came first always. One night when James was 6 weeks old, Tory found Helena in the nursery they had set up in the corner of their bedroom. She was rocking James, who was finally sleeping, and she looked exhausted. "Let me take him," Tory whispered. "You need to rest." "I am fine." "Helena, you are dead on your feet. Please let me help." She reluctantly transferred the baby, and Tory settled into the rocking chair with James on his shoulder. Helena crawled into bed but watched them instead of sleeping. "You are a wonderful father," she said softly. "I knew you would be, but seeing it is even better. I am trying. I am terrified half the time that I am doing everything wrong." "You are doing everything right. You are here. You care. That is what matters." "My father told me once that the best thing a man can give his family is his time and attention. I did not fully understand what he meant until now." "Your father was wise. So was yours. These watches they left us, they are not just timepieces. They are reminders that our time here is limited and precious. Every moment we spend together, every moment with James, is a gift." Helena smiled sleepily. "You are a philosopher tonight. Just a man who knows how lucky he is." James stirred, and Tory gently patted his back until he settled again. Helena's eyes drifted closed, and soon she was asleep. Tory sat in the darkness, holding his son, feeling the steady tick of his father's watch in his vest pocket, and counted his blessings. The years that followed were full and good. James grew from an infant into a curious toddler, keeping Helena and Tory constantly busy. The ranch continued to prosper, and they expanded the operation, buying more land and increasing the herd. When James was 2, Helena gave birth to a daughter they named Catherine Sarah, after Tory's mother and sister. Katie, as she quickly became known, had Helena's gray eyes and a sunny disposition that charmed everyone she met. Tory found fatherhood suited him in ways he had not anticipated. He loved teaching James to ride, to rope, to understand the land. He loved Katie's laughter and the way she wrapped him around her tiny finger. But most of all, he loved watching Helena with their children, seeing the love and patience she brought to motherhood. They had both come from loss. Both carried their grief in the form of their father's watches, but they had built something beautiful together. A family, a home, a life filled with love and purpose. One evening in the summer of 1885, 7 years after Helena's arrival in Castle Dome, the family sat together on the porch. James was 5 now, a bright boy with Tory's dark hair and Helena's intelligence. Katie was 3, all golden curls and giggles. Another baby was on the way, due in the fall. James was fascinated by his father's pocket watch and begged to hold it. Tory opened it carefully, showing him the face. "This was your grandfather's watch. He carried it in a war and he gave it to me before he died. Someday, it will be yours." "What about me?" Katie demanded, not wanting to be left out. Helena smiled and pulled out her father's watch. "This was your other grandfather's watch. He made it with his own hands. Someday, it will be yours." "Why are watches important?" James asked, that endless childhood curiosity in his voice. Tory and Helena exchanged glances, and she nodded for him to answer. "Because they remind us that time is precious. The time we have together as a family, the time we spend with the people we love, that is the most valuable thing in the world. These watches help us remember not to waste it." "Did you promise Mama your time?" James asked. He had heard the story before and never tired of it. "I did. The very first night she arrived, I promised her all my time, and she promised me hers. We have kept that promise every day since. And we will keep it every day for the rest of our lives," Helena added, reaching over to take Tory's hand. James seemed satisfied with this answer and went back to playing with a toy horse. Katie climbed into Tory's lap, and he held her close, breathing in the sweet scent of her hair. "Are you happy?" Helena asked him quietly, the question she had asked before but still needed reassurance on. "Happier than I ever thought possible. You came here as a stranger and you gave me everything: love, family, purpose. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Helena Dane. You gave me everything too. A home, safety, love, children. A reason to live when I thought I had none. I love you, Tory. I love you too." They sat together as the sun set, the sky turning brilliant shades of gold and red, their children playing nearby, the cattle lowing in the distance, the familiar sounds of the ranch settling for the night. 2 fathers' watches, 2 promises kept, 2 lives intertwined in the most beautiful way. In September, Helena gave birth to another boy they named Thomas Wallace Dane, and the house was full of noise and activity. Tory hired more hands to help with the ranch work, and Helena employed a woman from town to help with the children. The ranch was large enough now to support the extra expense, and they were determined that the family would not suffer for the sake of the business. Sarah visited often, bringing gifts from San Francisco and spoiling the children terribly. She had remained unmarried, claiming she was too independent for matrimony, but she was a devoted aunt. Miguel became like an uncle to the children as well, teaching James to rope and telling elaborate stories that made Katie shriek with delight. The community of Castle Dome grew around them. The mines continued to produce, though not as richly as in earlier years, and the town stabilized into a permanent settlement rather than a rough mining camp. The church expanded, a proper school was built, and civilization gradually tamed the rough edges of the desert. Through it all, Tory and Helena remained each other's anchor and joy. They still sat on the porch most evenings, talking about their day, making plans, simply being together. The attraction that had grown between them had deepened into profound love and respect. They knew each other completely, the good and the bad, and loved each other more for it. One evening in the spring of 1889, Tory found Helena in the garden she had planted behind the house. It was a small oasis of green in the desert, carefully tended and irrigated. She was kneeling by the tomato plants, her hands in the earth, and she looked up with a smile as he approached. "The children are finally asleep," he said. "All three of them at the same time. It is a miracle." She laughed and stood, brushing dirt from her skirts. They were exhausted. "James rode all afternoon with Miguel, Katie helped me in the kitchen, and Thomas is just always tired at this age. Come sit with me. I want to talk to you about something." They settled on the porch steps, and Tory pulled out his father's watch. The case was more dented now, the silver worn smooth in places from years of handling, but it still kept perfect time. "I have been thinking about time a lot lately," he said. "About how fast it goes. James is already 7. In another 7 years he will be 14, nearly a man. The time we have with them as children is so short. I know. Sometimes I wish I could slow it down, make these years last longer. But we cannot. All we can do is treasure each day, each moment, give them our time and attention just as we have given it to each other." Helena leaned against his shoulder. "You have kept your promise, Tory. Every single day for 11 years now you have given me your time. You have listened, you have cared, you have been present. I could not ask for more. You have kept your promise too. This life we have built together, it is more than I ever dreamed possible. You remember that first night, when I arrived and we sat out here looking at the stars. I remember everything about that night. How nervous I was, how beautiful you looked despite the dust and exhaustion. How you pulled out your father's watch and I pulled out mine. I knew then that you were a good man. The way you talked about your father, the respect and love in your voice, I thought maybe, just maybe, this would work out. I am glad it did. I am glad you answered my advertisement, glad you had the courage to come west, glad for every moment since." She turned to kiss him, a lingering kiss full of love and promise. "I am glad too." As the years continued to pass, the ranch became one of the most successful in the region. Tory's reputation for honesty and fair dealing brought him respect and business. He served on the town council and helped build a new schoolhouse. Helena became known for her kindness, her intelligence, and her work with other women in the community, organizing charity efforts and social events. The children thrived. James showed a natural talent for ranching and a level head that promised he would carry on the family business well. Katie was bright and determined, declaring at age 8 that she wanted to be a teacher. Thomas was still young but showed signs of his mother's analytical mind and his father's steady temperament. In 1892, when James turned 10, Tory began teaching him more seriously about ranch management. They spent long hours riding the property, checking on cattle, mending fences, and talking about everything from breeding strategies to market prices. James was a quick learner and eager to please his father. One day, as they sat their horses on a ridge overlooking the ranch, James asked, "Father, why did Mother come here? I mean, really. She was from a big city. Why did she agree to marry you when you were strangers?" Tory considered how to answer honestly but appropriately for a 10-year-old. "Your mother's father died and she was left alone with no way to support herself. I needed a wife and partner. We made an arrangement that benefited both of us. But you love each other now. We do, very much. How did that happen?" "We gave each other time, son. We talked, we learned about each other, we worked together toward common goals. Love grew from respect and partnership. It was not instant, but it was real." James thought about this. "When I grow up, I want a marriage like yours and Mother's. Then find a woman you respect, someone you can talk to and work beside. Romance is wonderful, but friendship and partnership last longer." "Did you ever regret advertising for a mail-order bride?" "Not for one single moment. Your mother is the best thing that ever happened to me. She gave me you and your sisters. She made this house a home. She gave my life meaning beyond just surviving. I thank God every day that she answered my advertisement." James smiled. "I will tell her you said that. She will like it. Tell her anything I say. I have no secrets from your mother." That evening, James did indeed repeat the conversation to Helena, who hugged Tory tightly and whispered, "You are teaching him well." In the summer of 1894, disaster struck. A summer storm brought lightning but little rain, and a fire started in the dry grasslands to the south of the ranch. The flames spread quickly, driven by wind, and threatened to engulf everything. Tory and his hands worked desperately to save the cattle, driving them north toward the spring where the green grass would not burn. Helena organized the house, packing valuables in case they needed to evacuate, and sent the children to town with Mrs. Martinez for safety. The fire burned for 2 days, and by the time it was finally controlled, they had lost about 50 head of cattle, one of the barns, and countless acres of grazing land. The main house and outbuildings survived, but the damage was extensive. Tory stood looking at the blackened landscape, exhaustion and despair weighing on him. Helena came to stand beside him, soot-stained and tired, and took his hand. "We will rebuild," she said firmly. "It will take years to recover from this. Then we will take years. We have time, Tory. We have each other, we have the children, we have our health. The rest is just details." He looked at her, this remarkable woman who had come west as a desperate stranger and had become his anchor and strength. "How are you so strong?" "Because you have taught me to be. Because we face things together. Because I know that whatever comes, you will be beside me, and that makes anything bearable." He pulled her close, holding her tightly. "I love you so much. I love you too. Now let us go check on the children and start planning the recovery. We have work to do." And they did work, both of them, along with Miguel and the other hands, the neighbors who came to help, and the community that rallied around them. By the following spring, new grass was growing in the burned areas, and they had rebuilt the barn bigger and better than before. The herd would take longer to recover, but they were on the right path. The experience brought Tory and Helena even closer together, if that was possible. They had weathered their first major crisis as a couple, and it had proven their strength as partners. James turned 15 in 1897, and Tory gave him his first real responsibility, managing a portion of the herd on his own. Katie was 12 and excelling in school, already helping the teacher with younger students. Thomas was 8 and showing signs of becoming a talented horseman. Sarah visited that summer and noticed immediately how much the children had grown. "They are practically adults," she marveled. "Where did the time go?" "It went into living," Helena said. "Into building a life and a family. Time well spent, I think." That evening, all the adults sat on the porch while the children played in the yard. Sarah pulled out a small box and handed it to Helena. "I brought you something from San Francisco. It is not much, just a small token." Inside was a beautiful silver chain. "Sarah, this is lovely. I thought you might like to wear your father's watch around your neck, as your mother did. The jeweler in San Francisco made the chain to fit the watch perfectly." Helena's eyes filled with tears. "This is so thoughtful, thank you." She threaded the watch onto the chain immediately and put it around her neck. The weight of it, resting near her heart, felt right. Tory smiled. "It suits you. Your father would be glad to see you wearing it." "I think he would. I wish he could have known our children. He would have liked you." "I wish I could have known him too. Any man who made such beautiful watches and raised such a wonderful daughter must have been remarkable." Sarah dabbed at her eyes. "You two are going to make me cry. You are so perfect together it is almost disgusting." They all laughed, and the children came running to see what was funny, and the evening dissolved into the happy chaos of family. The turn of the century came, and with it, changes. The mines around Castle Dome were playing out, and the town began to shrink as people moved on to new opportunities. But the ranching community remained strong, and Tory's operation was secure. They had weathered the lean years and built something sustainable. James was 18 now, a young man ready to take on more responsibility. Tory had taught him everything he knew about ranching, and James was proving to be capable and innovative. He had ideas about improving breeding lines and expanding into new markets that impressed his father. Katie was 15 and still determined to be a teacher. She had started helping at the school regularly and showed a real gift for working with children. Thomas was 11 and already nearly as good a rider as his older brother. On a warm evening in May of 1900, Tory and Helena celebrated their 22nd anniversary alone on the porch. The children were at various pursuits, and the house was blessedly quiet. 22 years, Tory mused. It feels like forever and no time at all. "Do you remember when I stepped off that stage, covered in dust and terrified?" "You were not terrified. You were composed and dignified." "I was absolutely terrified. I thought, what have I done, coming all this way to marry a stranger? But then you spoke to me and your voice was kind, and I thought maybe it would be all right." "Were you disappointed when you saw me?" She looked at him with surprise. "Disappointed? No, never. You were handsome then, and you are handsome now, though you have a few more lines around your eyes." "I have earned every one of those lines," he said with a smile. "Most of them from worrying about you and the children. And I would not change a single one. They show that you have lived and loved and cared deeply. That is beautiful to me." He pulled her close, and they sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the evening. After a while, Tory pulled out his father's watch. "I gave James this watch today," he said. Helena looked surprised. "I thought you wanted to wait until he was older." "He is 18, a man now, and I realized I want him to have it while I can teach him what it means. The responsibility, the reminder to value time. I want to see him carry it and know that he understands." "That is beautiful, Tory. What did he say?" he cried. "He said it was the most important thing I could give him, besides the ranch and my teachings. He promised to carry it every day and to give it to his own son someday." Helena reached for her father's watch, now on the silver chain around her neck. "I will give mine to Katie when she is 18. She should have something of my father, something to remind her where she came from. And Thomas, we will find something special for him too. Perhaps we could buy a new pocket watch together and make it a family tradition. 3 watches for 3 children, each one a symbol of time and family and love." "I like that idea very much." They were quiet again, and then Helena said softly, "Tory, I need to tell you something." He heard a note in her voice that made him turn to look at her carefully. "What is it? Are you all right? I am fine. More than fine, I am with child again." For a moment he could not process the words. Then they sank in and he felt a rush of emotions. Surprise, joy, worry, and overwhelming love. A baby. "Are you certain, Helena, you are 46? Is it safe?" Mrs. Chen confirmed it. "She says I am healthy and strong, and while there is always risk at my age, she sees no reason to think I cannot carry the baby safely. I am about 3 months along already." When, late November, early December, he pulled her into his arms, holding her carefully as if she were made of glass. "I cannot believe it. After Thomas, we thought we were done, I thought. I am afraid, Helena, you are not young anymore. I am not ancient either. I am cautious too, believe me, but I am also happy. One more child, Tory, one more little person to love. If anything happened to you, I could not bear it. Nothing will happen to me. I am strong and I have you. We will face this together just as we have faced everything else." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. I love you. I love you so much it terrifies me sometimes. I know. I feel the same, but fear cannot rule us. Love has to be stronger. It is. You make it stronger." The announcement of the new baby caused quite a stir in the family. James was shocked but pleased at the idea of a new sibling. Katie was thrilled and immediately started planning how she would help with the baby. Thomas was mostly confused about where babies came from, but accepted that he would have another brother or sister. Sarah arrived in October to help Helena prepare, and the two women spent happy hours sewing baby clothes and setting up a nursery. Helena was more tired this pregnancy, and she moved more slowly, but she remained in good spirits. Tory was attentive to the point of being overprotective, but Helena tolerated it with good humor. He refused to let her do any heavy work, fussed over her diet, and checked on her constantly. She teased him gently, but was secretly touched by his devotion. In early December, on a cold night with stars blazing overhead, Helena's labor began. Tory sent for Mrs. Martinez and the doctor immediately, and then he paced, just as he had with every other birth. He was more frightened this time, knowing the risks, but he tried to stay calm for Helena's sake. The labor was harder than previous ones, lasting through the night and into the next day. Tory refused to leave the house, staying in the next room where he could hear what was happening. The children were with neighbors, and Sarah sat with him, holding his hand when the sounds from the bedroom grew concerning. Finally, in late afternoon, he heard it, a baby's cry, strong and lusty. He sagged with relief. Dr. Emerson came out a few minutes later, looking tired but satisfied. "You have a healthy daughter, Tory, and Helena is fine, just exhausted. Give us a few minutes to clean up and then you can come in." When he finally entered the bedroom, Helena looked pale and worn but happy. She held a tiny bundle wrapped in soft blankets. "Come meet your daughter," she said with a tired smile. Tory crossed the room and looked down at the baby. She was tiny, smaller than the others had been, with a shock of dark hair and a red, wrinkled face. As he watched, she opened her eyes and looked up at him, and he felt his heart expand impossibly. "She is perfect," he whispered. "You are both perfect. I want to name her Margaret after your mother. Margaret Grace Dane. Mother would be honored." He carefully took the baby from Helena, marveling at how tiny she was, how fragile. "Hello, Margaret. Welcome to the family." The baby made a small sound and Helena laughed softly. "She knows your voice already." "I should hope so. I have been talking to her for months." "You have." "She is lucky to have you as her father." "I am the lucky one. All of you, you are everything to me." Margaret turned out to be the easiest baby they had ever had, sleeping well and crying little. The older children were fascinated by her and fought over who got to hold her. Katie became a second mother, helping with feeding and changing and rocking. Even Thomas, at 11, was gentle and careful with his baby sister. The new century had brought them a new life, and the family was complete in a way that felt deeply right. Time continued its inexorable march. James turned 20 in 1902 and announced his intention to marry Emma Blackwell, the daughter of a neighboring rancher. The wedding was a grand affair by Castle Dome standards, and Tory walked his son's bride down the aisle since her father had died the previous year. Watching James marry made Tory reflective. His son was a man now, starting his own family. Where had the years gone? It seemed like yesterday that James was born, and now here he was, pledging his life to another. "It goes so fast," he said to Helena that night. "It does. But we have made the most of our time. James is happy and well prepared for life. That is all we can ask. He told me he wants to build a house on the eastern part of the ranch, start his own operation within the larger business. I think it is a good idea. So do I. He and Emma will be close but independent. It is a good balance." Katie graduated from school in 1903 and began working as the assistant teacher, her dream fulfilled. She was gifted with children and seemed likely to follow in her mother's footsteps, capable, intelligent, and kind. Thomas was growing into a serious young man, interested less in ranching and more in mechanics. The new automobiles fascinated him, and he talked about moving to a larger city to learn about engines and machinery. "Let him," Helena advised when Tory expressed concern. "He needs to find his own path, just as James has. We raised them to be independent thinkers. I know. It is just hard to let them go." "We are not letting them go, just letting them grow." Margaret, meanwhile, was a bright and curious 3-year-old, into everything and full of questions. She followed Tory everywhere, her little hand in his, chattering constantly. He adored her in a way that made Helena smile. "You are such a soft-hearted man," she teased, "only with my girls. You have all wrapped me around your fingers, and you love every minute of it." "I do." In the spring of 1905, Emma gave birth to Tory and Helena's first grandchild, a boy named Michael James Dane. Holding his grandson for the first time, Tory felt the wheel of time turning. He was a grandfather now, the patriarch of a growing family. "Your father would be proud," Helena said, standing beside him as he rocked the baby. "You have built something lasting, Tory, not just the ranch but this family. It will go on long after we are gone." "I hope so. I want Michael and all the grandchildren to come to know the value of time, of family. I want them to carry on these traditions." "They will. James understands, and he will teach Michael. The watches will be passed down, and with them, the stories and the values." That evening, Tory sat on the porch with his father's watch in his hand, though he had given it to James. James had insisted he borrow it back for the evening. "I realized something today," Tory said to Helena. "My father gave me this watch, and with it, he gave me a way to measure my life. Not just in hours and minutes, but in moments that matter. And the moment you stepped off that stage 27 years ago, that was when my real life began." Helena smiled, her father's watch around her neck catching the lamplight. "Mine too. I came here with nothing but grief and this watch. You gave me everything else. Love, family, purpose, joy. You kept your promise, Tory. You gave me all your time. And you gave me yours. Every day has been a gift." "How much time do you think we have left?" she asked quietly. "I do not know. But however much it is, I will spend every moment loving you and being grateful for what we have built together. That is all I could ask for." They sat together as the stars came out, holding hands, the two watches marking time for a love that had grown from necessity into something profound and unbreakable. Around them, the ranch settled into night. Cattle lowing, horses nickering, the distant sound of James and Emma in their own house, the breathing of their children sleeping inside. Time, precious and limited, measured out by two fathers' watches, given to two people who had learned to cherish every moment they were given. The years continued to bless them. Katie married in 1908 at 23 to a teacher from Yuma named Daniel Foster. They moved to Phoenix, where he had accepted a position at a growing school, and Katie continued her own teaching career. She and Daniel visited often, and by 1910, they had given Tory and Helena two more grandchildren. Thomas left for San Francisco in 1909, at 18, to apprentice with an automobile mechanic. Sarah took him under her wing, and he thrived in the city. He wrote home regularly, his letters full of enthusiasm for the new technologies he was learning. Margaret was growing up surrounded by love and attention, perhaps slightly spoiled by being the baby of the family, but sweet-natured nonetheless. She showed signs of inheriting both her mother's intelligence and her father's steady temperament. Tory and Helena settled into the rhythm of middle age. He was 54 in 1910. She was 56, and while they were not old, they were no longer young. The ranch was thriving under James's increasingly capable management, and Tory was able to step back some from the daily operations. They spent more time together, taking rides into the desert they both loved, sitting on the porch talking for hours, visiting their children and grandchildren. The love between them had deepened over 32 years into something bone deep and essential. They functioned as one unit, finishing each other's thoughts, anticipating each other's needs, completely comfortable in each other's company. One evening in late 1911, as they celebrated Helena's 57th birthday with just the two of them, Tory gave her a gift. It was a small velvet box, and inside was a ring, gold with a small diamond. "We never had a proper engagement," he said. "You came here and married me with nothing but practical arrangements. I always wanted to give you a ring that represented my love, not just our contract." Helena's eyes filled with tears as she slipped it on her finger. "It is beautiful, Tory, but you know I never needed it. You have shown me your love in 1,000 ways over the years." "I know, but I wanted you to have it anyway, a symbol like the watches. Something to show the world how much I treasure you." She kissed him, and they sat together watching the sunset, her hand in his, the ring catching the light. "You remember when I told you I was beginning to fall in love with you?" she asked. "I remember everything about that conversation. It was after the Rustlers, and you hugged me, and I thought my heart would burst. I was so frightened you would be hurt. That was when I knew my feelings had gone beyond practical partnership into something real. I think I loved you from the moment you stepped off that stage, though I did not recognize it then. You were so brave and dignified, and I thought, this woman is remarkable. We have had a good life, have we not? The best life. Better than I ever imagined possible." Margaret burst onto the porch then, breathless and excited. At 10, she was all energy and enthusiasm. "Mama, Papa, come quick. One of the barn cats had kittens, and they are so tiny and sweet. Please come see." They let her pull them toward the barn, laughing at her excitement. This, Tory thought, this was what made life worth living. The big moments and the small ones, all woven together, all precious, all measured out by time and filled with love. The years rolled on. The world was changing rapidly, with automobiles becoming common, electricity reaching even remote areas, and talk of war in Europe. But Castle Dome remained largely insulated from the wider world, focused on the timeless concerns of cattle, weather, and family. Tory was 60 in 1916, a milestone that surprised him. 60 had seemed ancient when he was young, but now he felt relatively spry, still capable of a full day's work even if he moved a bit slower. Helena was 62, And while time had silvered her blonde hair and lined her face, she was still beautiful to him. More beautiful, even, because now he saw in her face all their shared history, every joy and sorrow reflected in the gray eyes he had come to know so well. Margaret was 15, on the cusp of womanhood, and starting to show interest in the young men of the area. Tory was not ready for her to grow up, but Helena reminded him gently that they could not stop time, only appreciate it. James and Emma now had 3 children. Michael was 11, and twins Sarah and Grace were 7. The eastern part of the ranch was thriving under James's management, and father and son worked together easily, their relationship now one of equals rather than teacher and student. Katie and Daniel had 4 children in Phoenix and were both respected teachers in their community. Thomas had opened his own mechanic shop in San Francisco and was doing well, even courting a young woman Sarah approved of highly. The family had grown and spread, but they remained close, gathering for holidays and special occasions. The ranch house that had once echoed with loneliness was now filled with the laughter of grandchildren and the comfortable conversation of adult children. One evening in the summer of 1918, the whole family gathered at the ranch for James and Emma's 20th anniversary. Tory looked around the crowded table at dinner and felt overwhelming gratitude. 3 generations sat together, from little Grace at 7 to himself at 62, all bound by blood and love. After dinner, Tory stood and raised his glass. "I want to make a toast. 40 years ago, I was alone on this ranch, wondering what my life would amount to. Then Helena answered my advertisement for a mail-order bride, and everything changed. She brought me love, children, grandchildren, and more happiness than any man deserves. So I toast my wife, my partner, my love. Helena, thank you for taking a chance on a lonely cowboy." Helena stood as well, tears streaming down her face. "And I toast you, Tory. You promised me all your time, and you have given it freely, every single day for 40 years. You have made me happier than I ever thought possible. I love you." They kissed while the family cheered, and then James stood. "I want to say something too. Father, Mother, you taught me what a marriage should be. You showed me that love is not just romance, but partnership, respect, and dedication. Emma and I have tried to model our marriage on yours, and it has served us well. Thank you for the example you set." Katie added, "You taught us to value time, to not waste it, to spend it on the people and things that matter. That lesson has shaped my whole life." Thomas, home from San Francisco with his new wife Clara, said, "You gave me the freedom to find my own path while always making sure I knew I had a home to come back to. That is a precious gift." Margaret, too young for speeches but full of love, simply ran to hug both parents, and soon all the grandchildren had joined in, a mass of hugs and laughter and love. Later, as the evening wound down and people began settling in for the night, Tory and Helena found themselves alone on the porch once more. Their spot, their sanctuary, where they had spent so many evenings over 40 years. "We have been blessed," Helena said softly. "Beyond measure," Tory agreed. She pulled out her father's watch and he pulled out his. They held them side by side, the 2 timepieces that had meant so much to them, that had marked the passage of their years together. "You remember my father's promise?" Tory asked. "That these watches remind us time is precious, every day. I am glad we did not waste our time, Helena. Every moment with you has been worthwhile, even when I was sharp-tongued or difficult, even then. Especially then. You are real, Helena, authentic in a way that makes every moment with you meaningful." She leaned her head on his shoulder, and they sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of their family settling down inside, the ranch settling into night around them. "How much more time do you think we have?" Helena asked, not for the first time over the years. "I do not know, but I plan to make the most of however much is left. So do I." Time, always moving forward, brought them into the 1920s. The ranch had survived the war years and the flu epidemic that followed, thankfully losing no family members to the disease that killed so many. They were in their 60s now, slowing down but still active, still engaged with life. Margaret married in 1922 at 19 to a young man named Robert Chen, Mrs. Chen's nephew who had come west to help with the family store. The wedding was a blend of traditions, and Tory walked his youngest daughter down the aisle with mixed feelings. Joy for her happiness, sorrow that his baby was grown. The grandchildren were growing too, with Michael now 17 and talking about going to university. The twins blossoming into lovely young women, and Katie's and Thomas's children all thriving. There were now 9 grandchildren in total, and hints of great-grandchildren were not far off. Tory was 67 in 1923, Helena 69. They moved more slowly now, and certain tasks were beyond them, but they were healthy and content. James had taken over complete management of the ranch, though he still consulted his father on major decisions. Tory had passed his father's watch to James permanently now, feeling the time was right. Helena gave her father's watch to Katie in a ceremony that left them both in tears. "Carry it with love," Helena said. "Remember what it represents: craftsmanship, dedication, and the precious nature of time." "I will, Mama. I promise." With Margaret married, Tory and Helena found themselves alone in the ranch house for the first time since Helena's arrival 45 years earlier. The silence was strange at first, but they adapted, rediscovering each other in new ways. They took long walks when the weather permitted, talking about everything and nothing. They sat on the porch for hours, watching the world go by. They played cards in the evening and read aloud to each other. They made love less frequently but no less tenderly, their bodies familiar and comfortable together. "I am glad we had these years," Helena said one evening. "These quiet years, just the two of us again. So am I, though I miss the noise and chaos sometimes." They visit often. "We are hardly isolated." "True, but it is nice to have you to myself too," she smiled. "You always were a little possessive, only of you, and can you blame me? You are precious beyond measure, sweet talker, truth teller." She laughed and kissed him, and he marveled, as he often did, that he was still so in love with her after all these years. In 1925, Michael graduated from university and returned to Castle Dome to work the ranch with his father. He was 20 now, educated and eager to bring new ideas to the operation. Tory was proud of his grandson and enjoyed teaching him the finer points of ranching. That same year, Katie's oldest daughter, Rebecca, got married, making Tory and Helena great-grandparents for the first time. The title made them laugh. "Great-grandparents," Helena said, shaking her head. "How did we get so old?" "One day at a time," Tory replied. "And I would not change a single one of those days, even the hard ones, even those. They shaped us, brought us closer. Everything we went through together made us who we are." Helena pulled him close. "I love you, old man. I love you too, old woman." The late 1920s brought prosperity to the ranch as cattle prices rose and demand increased. James and Michael worked well together, expanding the operation carefully and wisely. The family was financially secure, something Tory had not always been able to say, and he was grateful. But time was catching up to them. Tory was 72 in 1928, and while he was still mentally sharp, his body was betraying him. He moved stiffly in the mornings, and some days his joints ached so badly he could barely walk. The doctor said it was arthritis, common at his age and prescribed rest and warm baths. Helena was 74 and struggling with her own ailments. Her eyes were failing, making reading difficult, and she tired easily. But her mind was still sharp, and her spirit undimmed. They spent more and more time on the porch, content to watch the world from their rocking chairs. The grandchildren and great-grandchildren visited often, and those visits were the highlights of their days. One evening in the fall of 1929, as they sat watching the sunset, Tory took Helena's hand. "You have any regrets?" he asked. She thought for a moment. "No. I wish my father could have known you and our children. I wish we had more time. But regrets? No. This life we built together has been everything I could have wanted. I feel the same. You have been the great love of my life, Helena. Everything good that happened to me, it all came from the day you stepped off that stage in Castle Dome. You kept your promise, Tory. You gave me all your time every day for 51 years. You never made me feel neglected or unimportant. That is a gift beyond price. You gave me the same. You made my life worth living." They sat in silence, holding hands, the two old people who had started as strangers and had become everything to each other. Winter came, and with it, challenges. Tory caught pneumonia in January of 1930 and was bedridden for weeks. Helena tended to him faithfully, sitting by his bedside reading aloud though her eyes strained, bringing him soup and medicine, refusing to leave him. He recovered slowly, but he was weaker after the illness, more frail. The family gathered, worried, but Tory rallied. He was 74 now, and he told them he was not ready to go yet. "I still have time to spend with your grandmother," he said to James. "I am not leaving her until I have to." Spring arrived, and with it, renewed strength. Tory was able to walk again, to sit on the porch, to enjoy the warm sun on his face. Helena bloomed too, reassured that he would be with her a while longer. On a beautiful day in May, the whole family gathered again for Tory and Helena's 52nd anniversary. The ranch house was full of people, 4 generations together, celebrating the love that had started it all. Michael, now 25 and newly married himself, stood to make a toast. "To Grandpa and Grandma, who showed all of us what true love looks like. You have built not just a ranch, but a legacy of love and commitment that will outlast all of us. Thank you for everything you have given this family." Everyone raised their glasses, and Tory felt his chest swell with pride and gratitude. This was his legacy. Not just land and cattle, but people, family, love passed down through generations. That evening, after everyone had left, Tory and Helena sat on the porch in their usual spots. The sun was setting, painting the sky in the brilliant colors they had watched together for over 50 years. "We did well, did we not?" Tory said. "We did," Helena agreed. "Better than well. We built something beautiful. I only wish we had more time. We have had 52 years, Tory. That is more than many people get, and we have made the most of every day. I still want more. I will always want more time with you." She reached over and took his hand, and they sat together as the stars came out, holding hands as they had done thousands of times before, each moment precious, each moment treasured. The summer of 1930 was hot and long. Tory continued to weaken despite his best efforts, and by August, he was spending most of his time in bed or in a chair on the porch. Helena was always beside him, her own health failing but her devotion unwavering. On a warm evening in early September, Tory asked James to bring him his father's watch. James placed it gently in his father's palm, and Tory turned it over, feeling the worn silver, remembering all the times he had checked it over the years. "This watch has measured out my whole life," he said softly. "Your grandfather carried it through a war. I carried it through building this ranch and this family. You will carry it through whatever comes next, but always remember what it represents. I will, Father, I promise. Time is precious, James. Never forget that. Give your time to the people you love and you will never regret it. You taught me that. You and Mother both. Tory nodded, satisfied. Helena sat beside him, her father's watch around her neck, though Katie now technically owned it. Katie had insisted Helena keep it as long as she lived. That night, Tory and Helena lay in bed together, her head on his shoulder as it had been so many nights. "Helena," he whispered. "Yes, my love, thank you for everything. For coming west, for taking a chance on me, for loving me, for giving me a family. You made my life worth living. You did the same for me. You saved me when I had nothing. You gave me love and purpose. I could not have asked for a better life, a better partner. I love you. I love you too. Always." They fell asleep like that, holding each other, and in the morning Tory did not wake. The funeral was held on a clear September day, and the church in Castle Dome was packed. Tory had been a respected man, beloved by many, and the turnout reflected that. His children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren all attended, and there was much crying but also much love. Helena stood beside the grave, supported by James and Katie, and said her final goodbye to the man who had been her everything for 52 years. "Until we meet again, my love," she whispered, placing a single rose on the casket. "You kept your promise. You gave me all your time, and it was enough. It was more than enough." The ranch continued under James's management, and life went on as it always does, but Helena was lost without Tory. She tried to stay strong for the family, to continue as she had, but the light had gone out of her life. She spent her days on the porch in her rocking chair, her father's watch in her hands, remembering that first night when a nervous cowboy had promised her all his time. Remembering 52 years of laughter and love, challenges and triumphs, ordinary days made extraordinary by sharing them with someone who truly cared. Margaret moved back to the ranch to care for her mother, and Katie visited often. They made sure Helena was comfortable and loved, but they could all see she was fading on a cold morning in early December, just 3 months after Tory's death. Helena called her children to her bedside. She had grown very weak, and they all knew the end was near. "I want you to know," she said softly, her voice still clear despite her weakness, "that I have had a wonderful life. Your father and I built something beautiful together. Take care of each other, love each other, value your time together. That is the most important thing." "We will, Mama," Katie said through tears. "I love you all so much. But I am tired now, and I want to go be with your father. He promised me all his time, and I am going to collect on that promise." They all laughed through their tears, and Helena smiled. She closed her eyes, her hand wrapped around her father's watch, and slipped away peacefully. They buried her beside Tory on a hillside overlooking the ranch, where they could watch over everything they had built together. On the shared headstone, James had inscribed, "Victoria and Helena Dane." He promised her all his time. She gave him all her love. Together, they built a legacy that will endure. The ranch continued through the generations, passing from James to Michael's children. The watches were passed down as promised, each generation learning the story of the mail-order bride who came west with only her father's pocket watch, and the cowboy who promised her all his time. The story was told and retold around dinner tables and on front porches, a reminder that love built on mutual respect, shared values, and the gift of time could create something that lasted far beyond a single lifetime. The cattle still grazed on the desert land, the spring still provided water, and the house still stood, shelter for new generations of a family built on a promise kept. and a love that transformed two lonely people into something far greater than they could have been alone. In Castle Dome, Arizona Territory, on a September day in 1878, a woman stepped off a stage with nothing but grief and determination, and a pocket watch that measured time. A man stood waiting with hope and loneliness, and a pocket watch that reminded him to value each moment. They came together as strangers, bound by necessity, and they built something beautiful. A love that measured out 52 years, a family that would endure for generations, and a legacy that proved time given freely to those we love is the greatest gift of all. The desert remembered them, the house remembered them, and most importantly, their family remembered them. Not as perfect people, but as two souls who had found each other in the vast American West and had made the most of every moment they were given. The cowboy had promised the mail-order bride all his time, and he had kept that promise until his last breath. She had promised him the same, and she had followed him into eternity just 3 months later, unable to imagine spending her time without him. That was the true story of Victoria and Helena Dane, and it was told with love and pride by every generation that followed, a reminder that the greatest adventure, the deepest love, and the most meaningful life could begin with something as simple as a promise. I will give you my time. All of it.